And then screen. All right. Okay.
WTF astrology, Mary.
What the fuck is astrology? But what is it though?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Let's move my thing. All right. Um, yeah. What
Mhm.
the fuck? What
Yeah.
even is astrology?
What even is it?
Um,
Just explain it, Mary. Explain
this is what
all of
it is.
astrology. Yeah.
Astrology is the study of how space is beating your ass from that far away.
Yes, yes.
It's just like one of my favorite
Yeah,
things.
quotes.
Um, yeah. So, but I guess before we get to that, 'cause that's a lot of words. Um, what is astrology? Um, so we're gonna go over, and I'm recording this because the intention is to send it out um in an email, right, for
Hmm.
replay purposes. Yeah. So like, what I think might be an easier question is like, what is a birth chart reading, right?
Hmm.
So like,
Hmm.
how does astrology relate to you? That would be your birth chart. Um, and so in some ways, I think that's an easier question to answer, right?
Yeah.
And in that case, it would be where was the planets and the stars the moment you took your first breath,
Hmm.
right? And that is your birth chart. And then that's the fixed, that's the same. And then as we know, there's things called like transits. That's how things move over your chart, right? When your chart stays fixed. So that's kind of how astrology relates to us as individuals,
Hmm.
right?
Okay.
Um, yeah. So so first we're going to go into some of the signs, modalities. We're going to get into some of the details. We're going to talk about houses, and if we have time, we have some example charts at the end to look at. But we always seem to run out of time, which is good because that means there's usually questions. So if anybody has any questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat, or you can pop on and hit us with the questions either way. Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna go into some details here. We got the signs. This is what most people are familiar with to some extent. And then also the fact that it is your sun sign, right? So like most people know their sun sign as, you know, Aries, for example, or in my case, Sagittarius, in Lisa's case, Aquarius, right? Um, which we didn't even introduce ourselves, which is funny. I don't know if I skipped that slide. There was like a introduction slide.
Yeah.
Um, we're Team Aquarius. This is Lacey. I'm Mary. We've been doing the astrology thing for a few years now. We love it.
Hmm.
More of a passion, but also it's in our chart. No? So,
Yeah.
um, okay. Do you want to say anything, Lucy? Like, hey,
I'm recovering from being deathly ill. So
yes.
I'm trying to be
she's
more quiet. But yeah.
she's here though for support, even though she's sick because she loves it.
God, I love it. I love Mary. So, got to show up, support.
That's right. So Team Aquarius, right? That's the two of us. We do readings together, right? But it's definitely a partnership. And thank God, too. We're so much better together.
Oh my God. Real, real.
Okay, so before we go deeper in the signs, we should talk about the elements, right? So here we have this little breakdown. I don't know if stuff's in the way on your end, stuff's kind of in the way on mine, but we have earth, air, water, and fire, right? So all of these signs are broken down into elements as well. And of course, fire, passionate, um, inspirational, spontaneous, right? When you think about a fire person, think about the element, right? A flame is a little bit unpredictable, it's a little bit all over the place. Um, it's a little bit harder to predict what's going to happen with like a candle or a wildfire, right? Water, with kind of the opposite here, is more emotional, intuitive, embodied, right? So those are like your Pisces, your Cancer, your
Scorpio.
Scorpio. We have air signs. This is more mental.
Mhm.
This is logical, communicative, analyzing type energy. And then last we have earth. Um, Grounded, practical, reliable. It's very um earthy, right? When you think about, and then something we also talk about with these elements is if you have something prominent in your chart, it tells you kind of what you need, right? So people with a lot of earth in their chart need to actually go outside and be grounded, right? Maybe put their feet in the grass or get fresh air a lot, right?
Mhm.
Watery people definitely need to take a bath or go chill in a river, right? Like kind of mermaid it up. So these are definitely big, important pieces when we look at the individual signs. Um, let's see. All right, Aries, fire, Mars ruled. We would call this kind of the warrior, and the symbol is the ram. Lacey's my favorite Aries example. Um, when you think about actual whamming happening, right?
Yeah.
Aries is not really afraid of that, right? And that could kind of translate to confrontation or friction in a way, right? There's an element of you have to kind of push to get further. And Aries, being the first in the zodiac wheel, is very much ready to initiate and start and go. And then we have fire, right? So it's a little unpredictable. It's a little, it's fiery, right? Not very similarly, we have Taurus, right? So this is earthy. This is calm. This is the bull, right? So it's a slow moving, minimalistic kind of sign. Venus ruled. We would call this more goddess energy, right? Gemini, Mercury's ruled. If Lacey felt better, I would ask her to talk about like the Hermes or like the messenger,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But
It,
its symbology is like
yeah. Mercury is the relayer of messages. So Mercury sends messages between the gods, if you will, right? So anytime you're texting, anytime you're talking, processing, thinking, right? Like it's relaying messages.
right, and uh, it's represented by the twins, right? Gemini is an air sign, so it can hold a lot of different opinions. The twins kind of represent how it can hold opposite opinions or see both sides of something, right? I say trickster because they are going to get bored easily, right? Like think of Loki type energy. And then, yeah, being Mercury ruled means that it thrives in communication. Cancer, moon ruled, and the mother kind of symbol, right? It's represented by the crab. I should have put that on here, which is great analogy for cancer, right? They're hard on the outside, very soft on the inside. If you meet a cancer, they might come across a little bit like I can cut you if you cross them, especially with like their kids or their family. But
Mhm.
inside, we got that teddy bear, soft crab. But they are very intuitive. And cancer, yeah, also has something to do with the mother. So when we look at like your moon in your chart, that is also something to do with mother, right? Cancer, if you have prominent cancer, you're kind of ruled by the moon, right? It then becomes very important to know what the moon's doing and how it's fluctuating, right? Is it moody or is it just moon ruled? And then we have Leo. We're back to fire signs now. This is ruled by the sun. Brave lion. Um, Leo. What we talk to a lot of Leos about is that they need attention, right? And this is okay. Leos need to find healthy ways to have attention. It's not a bad thing. It is actually a really good thing, right? Because the sun, right, it shines regardless of what we think about it. That is kind of what a Leo needs to do. Virgo, Mercury ruled like Gemini, meaning it thrives in communication. Healer, this is kind of healer, goddessy energy. We're talking kind of still earthy and grounded. Virgo kind of has a foot in medicine or healing or I would almost say surgical too, right? Because of the details. Uh, That is Virgo. Then we have Libra. This is an air sign. Venus ruled, very goddessy also. Libra is also very concerned with like law and justice, balance, right? And it also represents other in astrology a lot of times too. So Libra very much likes to be in partnership in some way. Let's see, Scorpio. I'm moving through these kind of quick because there's so many, and we're going
Okay.
to talk about it again. So just kind of an overview. Yeah, so Scorpio is Mars and Pluto ruled, kind of depending on if you're talking about traditional or modern astrology, right? Lacey and I use kind of a hybrid. We kind of can see both sides, right? We can see that Mars and Pluto are both connected to Scorpio. This is a scorpion, right? It houses some of the darker things in astrology, right? Like death and rebirth and transformation. It's a water sign, so it still feels a lot, even though it doesn't necessarily want to show that. That's a scorpion thing, right? Got a shell, it's
Yeah, holds on
protective,
to. There's a holding on to and a difficulty with letting go. It's the part of our chart where we have a hard time letting go.
right? It could be a little stingy, you know. Scorpion.
Yeah.
This sign is investigative. It is loyal, right? Requires depth.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah, so it's a very interesting water sign. All water signs are interesting though. Sagittarius. This is our last fire sign. Jupiter ruled, which means it always kind of wants more, right? Or bigger, or it can like there's a expansive nature to Sagittarius because of it being Jupiter ruled. It's like a very noble sign, centaur or archer,
It's also like a comedy
simple,
sign. Yeah, yeah.
right?
Sagittarius, Gemini, opposites. They're like comedy, like wit and banter.
Right.
Make
Yeah.
things lighter. Yeah.
Um, yeah, Sagittarius is also like travel and philosophy. So I think it really likes Gemini's quickness and ability to take on lots of information because of its Mercury ruledness. After that, we have Capricorn, right? Earthy, reliable. The goat, right? This is literally a sign that likes to climb, right? Whether it's achievement, whether it's actual climbing, well, Capricorn is also, I would say, one of the more altruistic, genuinely altruistic signs, right? There is an element to this where they want to take care of humanity as a whole, right? And maybe less about themselves. And I think that's where some of their drive comes from, but also it's Saturn ruled, and Saturn's kind of like what's right, you know? So
Long
being
lasting.
compelled by what's right, kind of.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So earthy, reliable, but also very much ambitious, can manifest shit like no one else. We have Aquarius, which is me and Lacey. This is my moon. This is Lacey's sun. That's why we call ourselves Team Aquarius. Saturn slash Uranus ruled again. That's modern versus traditional astrology. I put alien here because that's my favorite like thought, but you could also say like astronaut. Obviously, it's the water bearer symbology, right? Because it can hold emotion, but it's not a water sign; it's an air sign. And so Aquarius needs a lot of space to think about things, right? Much like Capricorn, its neighbor, it's humanitarian based, right? So it tends to think about the collective. And that requires a lot of space and thought, right? Which makes me think alien, astronaut, kind of that. You would, some language you hear to describe Aquarius would be like eclectic, out of the box, rebellious, right? Um, yeah, usually like when you see a meme of an Aquarius, they're wearing bright colors and don't give a fuck. Uh, it's kind of that otherworldliness, right? It's that uniqueness. And finally, we have Pisces, an actual mermaid. This is Jupiter and Neptune ruled. Um, Pisces is the last water sign. It's considered to be kind of the most wise because it's the last. It means it's kind of cycled through every other sign in a way. Um, this water sign, I feel like, is most concerned with love, right? So you'll meet a lot of Pisces who are hopeless romantics. And this is kind of an expression of um, Pisces is end of the line, what comes next. It's more spiritual in a way, too. This is why music is often
Mhm.
associated with Pisces. But at the end of the day, what they're trying to figure it out is like, how do we ascend past the bullshit and just love each other, right? And you'll see negative expressions of that because every single sign has a light and a shadow side. Pisces can sometimes come across very hero or victim, right? And that just means that they're not, they haven't evolved to that full on Pisces place of, ultimately, I'm just trying to figure out how do I love everybody and how do I help everybody love everybody else. Um, So yeah, Pisces, it also can ghost, right? It's fish. So when it starts to feel a little overwhelmed or maybe like too many expectations that it can't meet, it swims away, right? Uh yeah, so you might I feel like everybody has a good Pisces story, especially dating.
Yeah. Girl, we were
Um
connecting and then they just swam away.
what do you mean?
Yeah.
Um Lacey has a Pisces Venus, and so there is an ability for her water, Pisces, and Venus is about connection. Her ability to connect with people is unmatched, right? Everybody feels loved by you, and you feel like you need to love everybody, right? In a way.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
Okay, so talking about the planets a little bit more, we mentioned their rulership in terms of signs, but planets, when we're looking at your chart, are kind of like the players, right? Um, and so it's important to know kind of what their personality is and like what role that each play. You might have heard a term like the big three. So that would be like your sun, moon, and rising. This would be like a quick overview or like a summary, right? You're not trying to tell somebody every detail of your chart, but here is the big three, right? Sun sign, most people know. This is usually why people think horoscopes are either really great or really um, fake,
Yeah,
is
yeah.
because if you're only reading about one sign, sometimes it's not going to feel that accurate, right? It's much better, especially if you're reading from like a trusted astrologer, the information, if you check your sun, moon, and rising, right? Things might feel a little bit closer to home, right? The sun is only one piece of the puzzle. Specifically, sun, when you think about the sun, right? It's shining, it's vitality. This is the same for us. It's how we shine, right? It's our personality. So sun sign is important. It's just not the only important piece. We have a moon sign, right? This is our inner world, emotions, intuition. If you're a car and you're driving up, the first thing people would see is your rising, right? This is your physical body. The next thing they would see would probably be your sun, right? Because this is kind of an outward expression of who you are. The very last thing that somebody gets to know about somebody is probably more like their moon sign, because this would be what we can't see and what we kind of have to open up to people to let them feel, right? This would be that connected feeling. This wouldn't be something uh, you would get a snapshot right away of, right? Unless, you're a very intuitive person. Maybe you feel that right away.
Or if you know astrology and you'd be like, oh, okay. You start,
Right.
my mind never stops guessing what somebody's shit is when I see them.
Truly.
Yeah.
We've got Mercury here. This is communication, right? So we're kind of talking about Hermes, communication, messenger of the gods, kind of a thing. This planet, wherever it sits in your chart, tells us inherently kind of how you communicate, right? Um, which is important to know. And
Yeah.
then when we overlap that with another person's chart, We see how two people communicate together, right? So that would be kind of a synastry chart, something we do for couples or parents or whatever, right? And this one piece can kind of help you see how communication can be very different from person to person.
Yes.
Sorry.
Mm.
Venus. All right, we already kind of talked about Venus a little bit
Mm.
because of Lacey. I suddenly want to have like a coughing fit. That's always the case, right? Um, okay, Venus. Love, connection, beauty, sensuality, right? This is the connectivity piece. This is what attracts us to people.
Yeah.
Ah, I
It's all
knew it was
right. It's
gonna
all
happen.
right. Yeah, yeah. Venus is what
I'm
attracts
so
us to
sorry.
people. It's what we're attracted to, right? Venus. Uh, so like, and in the different signs, it can be like how, oh, I like the little sparkle. Carrie had a little heart sparkle on there. It was cute. Uh, but yeah, Venus is how we connect, or if we have a harder time connecting than like other Venus signs, right? And so if you have a partner and you know their Venus sign, you can be like, oh, this is why, like it can answer so many like things about that.
Which is why you hear Venus and Mars associated with like romance a lot,
Right.
right? Because Mars would be your physical energy drive. Like this is very sexual energy too,
Yeah.
right? Lacey says Mars is fucking or fighting, and I think
Fucking or fighting, choose which one, choose the expression. Yeah.
that's a great way to summarize it, right? And you can see how
Yeah.
that would be a piece of the puzzle in terms of attraction, right?
Mhm.
But Venus is more goddessy, like what are you kind of naturally drawn to? What's drawn to you? How do you like love to look like, kind of, or
Yeah.
feel like?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then we have Jupiter. We kind of talked about this in relation to Sagittarius, right? Expansion. But Jupiter is just like the happiest planet, right? It represents wealth, luck, joy, abundance, right? More. I have a double Sagittarius daughter, literally just wants more of everything just for the sake of wanting more. Knowing that about her astrology helps me not hold it against her, right? Like, and just know that this is part of her personality to just,
Right.
you know, at least get asked if I can have more of this awesome thing.
Yeah. If it's on there. Yeah.
Um, let's see, we've got, I put North Node and South Node here. These aren't planets, these are lunar nodes, but they're big players in your chart in terms of like karma and past lives and what you're kind of, these are a bit of a compass, right? So your North Node kind of shows where you're going. South Node shows where you've already been, that you've kind of already mastered. I think that this alone can be a very interesting thing to look at in your chart, right? If nothing else, this I think is my favorite.
Yeah.
And it's very personal, right? Which is why it's in this column over here of the more personal planets, whereas this is generational planets. And this comes straight from, we have an astro guide that's for free. Um, and it's literally these pages, right? Because there's so many things. It's nice to have like a reference guide, right? So I'll put the link in the comments here prior to the end. But generational planets are more things that we share with a lot of people who are born around the same time as us. These are slower moving planets. So Saturn, right? Very slow. And it's also about life's purpose. It's also very much like a structured disciplinarian type planet, maybe more like a principal, right? Somebody of authority. This planet can kind of feel like it's maybe not the funnest, but its intentions are well, right? It wants you to be on the right path, the right purpose, right? It is ultimately wanting the best for you. Lacey says Saturn's only interested in things that will grow, right? Things that will actually
Things that
you
hold
know,
up a building, think of like bones, right? Saturn rules like bones, structure, right? Things that won't knock over. So think of pyramids, right? Saturn is concerned with things that last. Will this last for you? Is this a good decision that adds to the lasting? Its eye is on legacy, perspective, not just the moment.
and you'll share this with like a generation, right? So there'll be people, because it's slow moving, you'll find that there's people who are born around the same time that you are that might share certain ideals or feel very different than the generation before you, right? Um, Neptune, also generational. This one is a little bit more fun, except depends on where it lands in your chart, right? This is a dreamy, happy, ethereal type planet, right? It's very spiritual, but it also is kind of sleepy, right? So you put it next to maybe something like Saturn, who's very, let's go,
Mhm.
and you might feel slowed down, right? It's how
Yeah, it's
we
like
dream,
build your walls with clouds, Neptune, and
right?
pattern together.
So stitch those clouds together, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah, so Neptune, I think that if you are having dreams and you're trying to figure out what they mean, right? I would go and figure out what Neptune's doing in your chart, what's happening there. You feel like you're at a writer's block and you need to tap into maybe what imagination thing, what makes you feel imaginative. I would look at Neptune, and then I'd also look at your fifth house, right? These are creative kind of, it's a creative planet. Fifth house is a creative place. Uranus. This is a fun planet. It's literally like a lightning strike, right? You don't know what to expect with Uranus. It's a little bit unexpected, kind of wants to shake it up and make sure things don't get too boring. It is also innovative, right? It is moving forward. It's futuristic in a way, but it can feel really pesky. Like when Uranus is doing something in your chart, sometimes you can feel so tired at the constant unexpectedness or the constant change or right, like
Right. It's like advanced technology too, right? Like Uranus. When Uranus is transiting a sign and it takes a long time, you'll have like a bunch of new inventions, right? That's why I like we'll have punctuated sort of moments in time of like, oh my God, the world's fair. Everybody was inventing shit that time. Where was Gemini? Where was Uranus? Oh, it's in Gemini. Like new shit, it can move quick. Yeah.
right. Um, yeah,
Or like or Uranus going through Taurus right now, it shakes up the food industry, the security industry, the financial industry is the other thing that it shakes up.
tradition,
Yeah,
right?
like Bitcoin and stuff was born when Uranus started going into Taurus, right? Like alternatives, innovative ways to money, right?
Right. Alternative finance, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Crypto and yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Or upsets in the food chain, food supply, right? Uranus
right,
was going through
of
when
course.
yeah, yeah, yeah. During COVID and all these massive storms lately, things that have been big.
Right. Uranus is a shakeup, right? Like don't get too comfortable. We're gonna like
Yeah. It goes, surprise,
yeah.
motherfucker. That's what I think of it.
Yeah.
Surprise.
Yeah, so it's fun, right? Sometimes not so fun, but Uranus is Uranus. Pluto, you might have been hearing a lot about recently, right? It
Yeah.
just made a big move. This is a very slow moving planet, right? So the last 14, 15 years it's been in Capricorn,
Yeah.
right? And then it's half of my life it's been in Capricorn, right? And it just made its ascent into Aquarius, right? So it is a planet. This is planet, yeah. This planet definitely has its intensity to it, right? It's about transformation, about death and rebirth. It's about, Lacey says, picking up a rock and looking up what's underneath, right? Kind of understanding the underbelly of a situation, the crunchier pieces. I think about it as the actual gooey part of like a chrysalis, right? It's like the disgusting but necessary parts of change sometimes. And that goes for Scorpio too. Scorpio and Pluto, I feel like you can use a lot of the same descriptive words for. And there's a whole generation that has Pluto in Scorpio. And so, I don't think we mind these Pluto transits as much. The Pluto and Scorpio generation maybe doesn't feel them the same way. But depending on where Aquarius is in your chart, this planet coming in is going to be heavy, right? For all of us, we're all going to feel this. It has been, sitting somewhere for a very long time, slowly making its way to this point. So, with big transits like this, we feel them coming, right? But there's still kind of an apex of energy where when that change happens, right, you kind of have to pay attention to what kind of themes are showing up, what kind of rebirth is happening, right? Or should you let happen?
Right. Like
Uh,
a deep perspective or a deep look at, right? It goes, let's look at this deeper. It kind of goes like magnifying glass, right? Minutia, which makes it hard then to, I don't know, be light, I guess, because yeah, it goes, let's look at the deepest, darkest spot. Do you not want that exposed? I'm going to expose it, right? Like Pluto does not care. Pluto is like, you've got to change. You can't remain a caterpillar forever, right? Like
right.
that is not how it works. You have to evolve, you have to enlighten. And I know it's going to hurt, but you know, it's a power and you can use that power to be like, yeah, I'm going to allow this to make me stronger and less and more invincible. That's what I've noticed about Pluto because it's like right up on my sun. So I've definitely felt more like, yeah, ask me anything, right? This is the dark underbelly. Here it is, feeling bold about talking about it.
Pluto. Love
Giving
Pluto.
me balls. It's definitely made me more like, hurrah.
You
I
can
know,
think
like,
about
yeah,
Phoenix moment. You know what I mean? Like, when have you been completely torn down and then from that point built up in a better way, right? Like, when have those moments happened? Likely Pluto had something
yeah,
in it, right?
yeah.
So
Well, COVID, right? The whole system came down, right? That was a Pluto, Saturn, Mars conjunction, right? Jupiter. That
yes,
was four planets all packed up with Pluto. And it was like, what part of our society is our shit is working and what part isn't, right? Tear it all down, right? We had to like, what? Everybody went inside, everybody cocooned up, right?
and sadly, a lot of death, right, as a
Yeah.
result of COVID. I mean,
Yes, Saturn and Pluto's are the double reapers there. Mars got a war, casualties. Yeah.
yeah.
Light.
Next up, we have the houses. um, and off that dark note, no,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's not like, I mean, we're still gonna talk about it. It's reoccurring. We can't not talk about Scorpio Pluto moments. But
Yeah.
okay, so if planets are the players, this would be kind of the environment, right? This would be the location that things are happening in. Um, your rising sign dictates kind of the areas of life for your chart, right? So whatever your rising is, you're gonna see it start your chart, right? And then that creates these houses. And so the first house, this has to do with your body, self, personality. The next house, we call this a work house. And when we do um, work readings, right, work related readings for people, we work with a lot of life coaches actually. We look at this is one of the work houses that we look at, right? Because this tells us what your natural resources are. Um, Resources being, land, money, ethics, values, morals, right? A variety of things has to do with resources. And as you can see, they have some relation to the signs here, right? This first house, it's probably going to be in a different sign in your chart. In Lacey's, this is exactly the same. She's an Aries rising. So this is what it looks like, right? For hers. I'm a Scorpio rising. So this changes for mine, right? Scorpio then becomes up here at the top. And then my second house of resources is Sagittarius, right? And I know that that seems a little confusing. It makes a lot more sense when we're looking at your
Mhm.
personal chart. But what you should know is that the first house has a little bit of an Aries personality to it. So in Lacey's case, it's kind of a double Aries personality. In my case, it's an Aries Scorpio mix, right?
Mhm.
Because this house, oh, hang on.
Yeah, this house is so it kind of gives an Aries vibe. So Mary has a Scorpio rising, which is like a deep, watery, I do not want to be on a stage. I don't want people looking at me, even though the Leo is like, you have to. But
Oh, man.
yeah, yeah. Still though, she'll have some sort of boldness about her when she does show up, right? Like that's what it is. Mhm.
So, whatever your first house is, whatever your rising is, mix that with a little bit of Aries, right? Because Aries, as an archetype, has a lot to do with self and ego and understanding what those needs are in this life, right? Not a bad thing, but Aries does have a focus on self, right? And that
Right.
often means self-care,
Does
right? We talk,
anybody put in the chat if you know your rising sign? If not, it's totally cool, but we could talk about that.
right? Also, if you're like sun or moon,
Yeah.
throw them in there.
Mhm.
Okay. So yeah, resources, third house, Gemini, that layer of communication. This fourth house of Cancer is a lot to do with home and how we feel safe, right? This is a house of sex for fun, creativity, kids. Your sixth house is another work house. This has to do with routines and day-to-day life, health, wellness, injury, disease, unfortunately, but like this has a lot to do with what day-to-day life looks like for people. Seventh house, this is the house of other, right? So this has a lot to do with who you partner up with. And yes, romantically, that is a big piece of this, but this could also be work partnerships. This can be um friendships, relationships within your family, right? These are just connections. And then the eighth house here, this is merging, right? So like let's say you get married, this next step would be you're merging finances, you're merging body and soul in a way,
Taxes,
right?
joint ventures, yeah.
Yeah, you're going deeper. Um, there's kind of a death of two people and a rebirth of, a team or partnership, right? Um, so the way that this shows up for our life coaches that we see who have a lot of the transits here in the seventh house is partnering up with people. And then the next step is there being some sort of contract around it, right? Um, eighth house has to do with other people's money. It sits directly across from personal resources, right? This has to do with how we receive money in this life. Were you gonna say something, Lacey?
Nope, that's
Oh,
it.
sorry. Felt like I cut
Good
you off.
stuff.
Ninth house. This is about travel, higher education, religion, things that govern us, right? Philosophy. Sagittarius has a curiosity about other cultures and the way other people do things. And then there's a kind of a desire to teach that. Sagittarius is kind of the teacher, right? Uh, Sitting across from this is Gemini. This would be more of like the forever curious, right? The forever student learning. And then Sag kind of brings more of a teacher energy to the mix. Um, this 10th house, this is the last work house that we look at. This is career and legacy, right? This is reputation, how you care about your outward reputation being seen, right? This is all about the legacy that you leave behind. This Capricorn energy, right? So this is like, what are my goals? What am I climbing towards?
Mhm.
After that, we have this 11th house is community, right? So this is who are your people? Who do you network with? Who do you find community and comfort with, right? Also, astrology. I can't help but see astrology all over this
Mhm.
11th house. And so sometimes I kind of predict if I think somebody is going to end up being kind of an astrologer based on what shows up in this house.
Yeah.
And then 12th house, right? As you can see, this is very close to the first house, right? This is literally kind of the line between conscious and unconscious. If this is self and everything that we know about our body and our ego, this is kind of everything we can't see here, right? It's the final house, and it has that Pisces energy of spirituality and etherealness, and how does love connect us all, right? What's it all for? What happens after we die, right? This is a very kind of existential, curious place, right? And I'm sure you can think of some Pisces that you've met that are kind of like that. And when you have this 12th house active in somebody's chart, it gives a very similar energy.
Mhm.
Also, if you have a lot of stuff in this 12th house, you might need naps, right? It's kind of a foggy, sleepy place. Um, my partner has a
Mhm.
son here.
Mhm.
He hates it. He needs naps. That is okay, so I can't see our chat. Okay, wanted to see if there's anything in there. Make sure we weren't missing anything.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so this is hopefully this isn't blocked on your side. Um, let's see, what time are we at? 43. We have like 15 minutes. If there's
Yeah.
questions, please throw them in the chat or like come on and ask. We just have some few charts to look at as like examples. I love Lana Del Rey. You know,
Yeah.
anybody else, but
Hello.
uh, look at that Scorpio rising.
Yeah. It's interesting to
Uh,
me that she has such a Scorpio rising, and I mean, her MC though she's a Leo moon in the 10th, so that sort of is powerful and outweighs her desire to probably hide. You know?
right. This makes it probably maybe easier to expose all those feelings. You know, those dark, deep feelings, because as we know, like most Leo moons that we know are kind of living an internal monologue that feels very much like an indie movie or something, right?
Right.
I picture them all in some sort of eternal sunshine of the spotless mind type cinematography, right? I've asked every Leo moon that I've ever met if they live their life
Yeah.
inside their head as a movie, and they've all said yes. They have soundtracks, they have
Yeah.
cutscenes.
Yeah. And
So
they like to do eye makeup. Like they love to have eye makeup done. It's another thing that I've noticed.
Leo moons,
Yeah.
yeah. Uh, so yeah, in her case, it makes total sense that her legacy is there and being seen, and then that also that she's covering some darker topics, darker romantic feelings, right?
Yeah. Pluto and Saturn in the first house, like literally talking about death. Right.
Right,
Because
right.
Pluto and
And
Saturn are both death planets. So it's like, interesting.
also a quick FYI, those charts come from astro.com. It is a free astrology site where you can make a free account and then keep charts in there, and they look like this. It's one of the more accurate sites, especially for freebies. And then this down here is kind of your key, right? Like kind of a chart, right? It gives you so what each sign is over here, or what the planet is and the symbol. And then this is a little bit harder to understand when you're first starting out, but this is the aspects in kind of more of a grid form. So they're basically laying out these connected, these are aspects, right? And it just shows how two planets are communicating with each other. This is seeing it in more of a grid form. That's all that is. It looks really confusing, but it's kind of nice to have, right? Depending on how you prefer to read a chart, sometimes it's nice to have it in that kind of more grid style.
Mhm.
Um, I love that her Venus is over here in Taurus. So
Yeah.
That feels dead on for her.
Slow, right? Venus in Taurus is like a given slowness. What?
I remember reading something where she was like hella late to a show, like hours late, and people were so pissed, right? Because like they didn't want to be there till midnight. And also, you just feel like there's almost like a disrespect of your time to have to wait 2 extra hours for somebody to get ready, right?
Right.
But I had thought about this as, yeah, slow. I would say it is slow too.
And then she has a lot of water too, which is like, what is time? A little bit.
I have Dolly Parton's here too, just because I'm a fan. Um, I think you see her altruism in here too,
Yeah.
right?
We also see problems with breasts because Saturn and Mars together in the sign of Cancer is it rules the chest area. So she's had some you know, engorgement. I found that like, they have issues.
That's so,
Yeah.
in the 11th house of community too, right? Um, her 10th house is Gemini. She got a North Node here, Uranus, unexpected, and then MC. Yeah, the altruism, I see that here with the Capricorn, right? So one entrepreneur, right?
Yes.
Dollywood. Right? She's got her hands in so many things. She's still making music, right? But also she does the like free books for kids, right? Under five, reading
Oh, yeah,
library.
children. Yeah.
Um, right? And she does that, out of her own pocket. And
Yeah.
then I've heard her interviewed and she talks about how she picks places that are in need of financial like infusions, and that's how she picks where she's going to put things, like where she can build. She'll pick communities that need that need the jobs, that need, you know, money in them. And I think that's, I think this is just her Capricorn, but then also, having this 10th house, which is a Capricorn house, Uranus North, there's a little bit of like humanitarian altruisticness that's kind of karmic, right?
Yeah. And there's also like a Gemini gives of two minds. So this is why she's not Republican or Democrat or liberal, right? Like you would try to put a label on her in a way, but she's kind of able to be in all of the houses. It's interesting.
Right. That moon in Virgo sitting on her like rising, like it's technically sitting above her rising,
Yeah.
but still a moon in Virgo would be very concerned with taking care of other people, right? Very concerned with being in service.
Have the same look down to a detail also would be Virgo
Like
rising.
iconic look, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Ah, I love Dolly.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then I don't know if we have a moon mail, the astro guide I mentioned. This
Yeah.
crash course we do monthly, so please come back as many times as you want. Teamaquarius.com is where you would book a reading. And then we have our Astromanics podcast. We talk about as many spicy, sexy, uncomfortable things as people let us talk about on there.
It's my favorite topic. Oh, chat. How often
How
would you make a chart for yourself? Christy wants to know. Christy.
um okay, so if I understand this question right, you
Yeah.
would pull up your birth chart and then maybe how often would you like pull up transits or something with that? Is that kind of a question? Your birth chart would be fixed, right? So we pull up your birth chart or you pull it up on astro.com, and the key kind of is knowing your exact birth time. That's what makes it a very accurate birth chart, but then it doesn't change, right? That is your birth chart unless you explore different branches of astrology. So if you play with whole sign versus Placidus, your chart will look different, but technically it's not changing anything. It just depends on what astrological lens you want to look through. There's like Vedic astrology, which is sidereal, or more of what they study in India, and it's very medical and very detailed, right? Um, anyway, all of this to say you can have one chart that is you, and then how often maybe would you check that chart, or how often would you like pull up transits on it? If you're lazy enough, that would be every day.
Yeah, that is on the reg.
Um, exactly.
Yeah.
Let me know if that answers that question. Um, I think I'm gonna wrap this up here. If that didn't answer your question, you can also hit us up on Instagram and we can continue that conversation too. We're at teamaquarius.pdx or
Mhm.
astromanics.pdx.
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm glad it answered that. But yeah, we are chatty on Instagram, so hit us up over there if you have any questions, or come back next month when we do this again.
Yeah.
We're gonna do like a Valentine's Day E1, right? Because it's gonna be like
Yeah.
mid-February.
Yeah.
Maybe we should look. We could do
Mars.
like maybe for the example charts, we'll do like a romantic.
Synastry.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
It'd be
Thank
fun.
you so much for coming. Um,
Yes.
we love doing these, so we'll see you at the next.
Bye.